In this video, let my baby see the dog. Cousin's delusional wife demands to plan our wedding but throws a Facebook tantrum when I decline. And angry boss tries to pick a fight with US Army. Let my baby see the dog. Cast, me, the sarcastic smartass who was not in the mood for BS. Wife, mega hot sexy lady whom I love dearly. M, Miles the dog. S, Samson the dog. EM, entitled mom. EB, entitled brat. EEB, elder entitled brat. G, Gramps, who's walking on thin ice with me, but in this situation, he was appreciated. So after an incredibly toxic family dinner, my wife and I decided to take our dogs on a walk. I have 2 dogs and both of them are rescues. The first one, named Miles, is Chonkmeister Supreme, super patient and super kind. The other dog, named Samson, is an anxious mess. He was abused and he barks at random strangers. He's a sweet boy, but we've been working on leash aggression. Anyway, we began our walk around our neighborhood when my wife realized she forgot something. She had Samson and quickly ran inside to grab it. I believe it was gloves. It was cold outside, but don't quote me on that. As I'm waiting in our driveway, EM and EB walk by. It starts off as a normal neighborly talk, and then we wish a Merry Christmas. EB stopped and pet Miles, which is completely fine with me. Miles likes attention, and he's a sweet dog who can handle it. EM continues talking when I hear a bark come from our front door. I turn and my wife is standing in the doorway. She sees EM and EB and goes back in the house and waits for them to leave. That's always our routine with Samson, as he needs a minute to get used to being on his leash. EB saw my other dog and ran over to the glass door to look at him. Samson is losing his shit behind the glass, and I quickly run over and try to explain the normal. He had a bad owner before we adopted him, so he's scared. The kid didn't care. He wanted to see Samson and he demanded to see him now. He put his hand on the doorknob to try and open it, and I lightly push his hand off it. The EM ran over, and I expected her to explain to her kid why he couldn't just open up someone's door, especially during a pandemic, but instead, she yells at me for pushing his hand off. I was taken aback, but apologized nonetheless. I just wanted them to get away from the door. The little boy kept screaming he wanted to see Samson, and I was trying to explain to the mom why that wasn't possible when she crossed her arms and frowned. At this point, my mood is terrible. I look at the woman and tell her that she can get off my property now and have a Merry Christmas. She rolls her eyes and takes EB by the hand and walks to the street. She stands right off my driveway and crosses her arms and tells me that if I bring that dog out and it barks, she's going to call animal control. EB is still screaming for the dog, and I just look at my wife, defeated. I felt like this is the type of woman who would follow us on the walk just to be petty. So I walked back into the house, took my dogs off the harnesses, and my wife and I went on our walk without them. When we got back, however, my grandfather was screaming at someone. My wife and I run over to see our back gate open. EB and EEB, who is new, so sorry if that's confusing, were standing at the gate of our backyard with my grandpa standing between them. They had a super soaker and were wanting to spray our dogs for being mean dogs. I took the water gun from them and broke it. Then I tossed it into the street. Probably overdramatic, but if Samson was back there when they were sneaking back, this could have gone really wrong. They ran off crying, and the EM came waddling back to our house. We wouldn't answer the door, and so she stayed on our porch for 30 minutes and demanded we buy a new super soaker for her kids. When we finally left, she threatened to crack our gate open in the middle of the night so the dogs would get out. Thankfully, my wife had the right mind to record this, so if anything happens, we can bring it to the authorities. All this to say, please just listen to people when they're working with a reactive dog. Cousin's delusional wife demands to plan our wedding but throws a Facebook tantrum when I decline. So this happened yesterday, and I'm at a loss for words, to be honest. Well, yesterday, I was on a Zoom call with several of my cousins just catching up on things and whatnot. At some point into the call, one of my cousin's wives barged into the conversation and pretty much took it over. She's not well liked at all in our family, so the call ended soon after she invited herself in. Anyways, about 30 minutes after the call had ended, CW, cousin's wife, called up my phone, and before I could even say hello, she just started interrogating me about my wedding, and when I said that we haven't planned anything yet, She began gushing about how we should hold it at the venue she held hers along with catering, DJ, and so forth, even going as far as to donate us her playlist. She said she'll get right to it and she'll handle everything for us. Now, if there was an award for the worst wedding ever, CW would be in their Hall of Fame. First, the venue was a dump in the middle of nowhere with no roads connecting to it from the highway. It was so bad, many of the guests weren't able to find it, so a lot of them were extremely late or ended up getting frustrated and traveled back home. Furthermore, the venue was not handicap friendly, so it wasn't fun for the more elderly and wheelchair-bound guests, including CW's own brother. Also, the venue had no restrooms available, and the only ones that were available were located about a 30-minute walk. Adding on, when we got to the venue, we saw that there were a lot of cats literally on the guest tables, and some guests were horrified to find cat poop at their designated seats tables. The staff took its time to do something about it, so those guests left soon after. Next, the food. The food itself was horrible. The desserts were in a horrible shape and were nothing but a crumbling crust and fruit paste that had to be scraped onto the plate. The cooked dishes weren't properly stored beforehand, and a lot of it smelled spoiled, which later turned out to be true since people began complaining about stomach pains. Third, wedding ceremony in the midst of summer at an outdoor venue? Not a good idea. CW's wedding ceremony was incredibly long, about 2 hours. Again, it was the middle of summer at an outdoor venue, so it was hot. Not only that, staff had closed the bar for the 2 whole hours of the ceremony. We weren't even able to get glasses of water. Fourth, the staff. They were highly unprofessional, and while they did have fans set up at the beginning around the tables and dance floor, they were later picked up and the owner refused to get them out even though people were starting to fry. Finally, the music/DJ. The music was ridiculously loud, as in take the maximum volume on Gerard 401 speakers and multiply it by 20 loud. While of course it's only natural for people to have a different taste in music, let's just say that the playlist CW had chosen didn't fit a wedding at all. If anything, it was more suitable for hotels, kids' pool, gym, bori. Needless to say, with lack of any ventilation and the extreme loud volume, other than CW and her few sisters and friends, the dance floor was mostly deserted. I didn't stay long much either, and left right after my fiance began complaining about severe stomach pains, which later turned out to be food poisoning. We spent the night at the ER, so that was fun. Back in the present, CW kept running my ear off how amazing hers was and how ours could be just as amazing if we stuck to her plan, meaning copy-paste hers onto ours. When she had noticed I was silent, she was about to pitch her idea to me again, but I quickly shut it down. I reminded how a good chunk of her guests ended up with food poisoning, my fiance included, as well as that several of the said guests later on sued the venue. I then informed her that me and fiance have already decided on which venue we'd like our wedding to be at, and basically informed her that while I appreciated her willingness to help out, our tastes don't match and would prefer to consult people who are more familiar with fiance and myself. I was pissed and wanted to rage on about how her wedding sucked and our grandfather, mine and her husband's grandfather, nearly ended up dehydrated, but I held it in and simply ended the call. I knew she was upset because this was a woman who has rarely heard the word no throughout her life, so I was mentally preparing for whatever hostile fire coming my way, and sure enough, cousin hits up my phone and demands to know what I said to his wife because she hasn't stopped crying since we ended our conversation. I told him she decided upon herself to plan our wedding, but I refused. He was a bit hysterical at first, but calmed down a bit after I explained myself. He knows I wouldn't make stuff up. His wife, on the other hand, said I called her a bitch, that my fiance hates her. She does, but I've never said anything. That we're going to sue her, and that my family can't wait until cousin divorces her. Sigh. I chuckled a bit and told cousin exactly what I said and even offered to send him a recording of the call. All of my calls are recorded. Trust issues. He said he'd like to listen to it, so I later sent him the recording. He later called again and said that they had a big argument and she went to spend the night at a friend's. Later that night, it was brought up to my attention that CW went onto social media to say how I'm a horrible person who hates her and is the sole reason of why her marriage is crumbling. However, she soon removed the post when people who know better came to defend me, and I even made a reply that I can share the recording with whoever's interested. Angry boss tries to pick a fight with US Army. So this all happened in the last few weeks. For reference, I'm a battalion level officer in the Army Reserve. While I was getting my master's, I took an overnight gig doing unimportant things. Mostly, my coworkers are 19 to 22-year-olds in college or just out of high school. Pay was good, and I could focus on my studies all night. I graduated with my master's in 2018, but job market for my field and my area was hard for a while. I had a good relationship with the owner of my company, and the pay was really good. Plus, the Army has me working in my field, so I just decided to stay. Fast forward to 6 months ago. I've been here 4 years now. Every manager or supervisor has nothing but praise for me, and I've made zero mistakes that cost the company any money or time. New boss. Good guy. Flexible. Works with people to get people's schedules they want, but over time, personal issues or something got in his head. I suspect he doesn't like struggling to schedule around my military duties, but who knows? He starts name-calling, being condescending, or ranting and raving at me for unclear reasons every time he sees me. He wants things cleaned up, but is never able to quite articulate what that means, and my attempts never satisfy him. One time he ranted at me for sweeping wrong, another time for calling him when nobody showed up to relieve me for an hour past my shift, and the guys on the schedule said they were told they didn't need to come in. When he does manage to give a specific instruction, he'll show up the next day and rant and rave and yell that I didn't do it before he told me. Well, now my comfortable, well-paying job is no longer peaceful, and I have better things to do than listen to a man-child be angry at the world every day. So I hop on Indeed and apply for a couple jobs in my field. By now, I have the master's and 6 years experience doing it in the Army, so I land some interviews and within a few weeks get an offer for double my salary. Soon after, as I'm still working on the onboarding process for the new company, he becomes enraged that a garbage can is dirty. I shit you not, a garbage can is dirty. I listen to him rant and name call and all that fun stuff, and the next day, I roll my eyes and wash the garbage can. He responds by yelling at me some more because I didn't wash it before being told to. Called me some names, then threatened to fire me. So I shrugged and wrote up my 2-week notice and handed it to him the next day. Turned out that threat was a bluff. He is now very short-staffed and he blew up again. Yawn. The next day though, I noticed something peculiar on our work app. My time off request filed months ago for upcoming military orders had been denied. I laughed it off because obviously that's a misclick on his part. But nope. I come in for work again and he very smugly informs me that I'll be working through the whole next week. I have military obligations. I don't care. I denied your time off request. I have orders from the military. I can't be here. Nope, I denied it. You can't do that. Yes, I can. This is what you get for not respecting me and acting like a child. I'm denying your time off request, so figure it out. Can I have in writing that you're denying me unpaid time off for military duty? Ladies and gentlemen, if asked for something in writing, a smart man would stop and reconsider. A smart man actually would have realized well before talking to me that trying to tell an Army battalion that they can't have one of their captains because a 35-year-old civilian middle manager is being petty is a really dumb idea and is in fact illegal. But my boss is not a smart man. Maybe he once was, but he is now an angry, vengeful, petty man that at this point believes he has won a mighty victory over his enemy. So he puts it in writing and then walks off with a confident swagger, shouting over his shoulder, "Figure it out, if you insist." So after my shift, I wait for our main office to open and I call the company's owner for the first time since this new boss started. Friendly chat, and then I tell him I'm calling just to warn him that his manager is trying to pick a fight with the DOD and that I wanted to call and let him know and get it resolved unofficially. Owner thanked me for calling him, assured me that I would of course have those days off, and asked me what my perceptions were of the new boss. I gave him my opinion that he was once great but has turned into the most toxic, abusive person I've ever worked for. We wished each other well and then hung up. I don't know what happened next, but I suspect the owner politely and calmly informed him that small businesses don't like their managers picking fights with the federal government because when a new schedule came out, I had my drill days off and my boss avoided me after that. I'm taking a vacation after drill and then starting my new job as an expert in my field on Memorial Day, working autonomously with clients, and he will remain there, angry, frustrated, and stressed. I figured it out, boss man.